King, this is a perfect day for you. An artist like you. Randomest places, you know. I'll be at work and brush it like.
Good.
There's some Girl Scout cookies here too. You guys want some Girl Scout? I'll pass them around.
Got one.
Stop playing. Pass those around. Everybody got water? Everybody got water? We good?
That's one of the airdrops.
Those are dangerous, keep them away from
There
here.
we go.
So do we go? So I'm guessing.
Yep. Between edge of the T to the 7C. All right, we are here, week 4, growth and goals mindset. We're talking about branding with Carlos from Option A. Also, we're talking about starting a clothing line too, because he's dope at that. And also got a special guest who rolled up, Lucho. He's also gonna give you some tips on starting a brand, a clothing brand especially. These guys have, Lucho, how long have you been doing this? 15? How long have you been doing this? 20, 35, I've been doing it 20 years, so that's what, 55 years of experience between the three of us right now. So if you guys got questions on branding, doing your clothing, or anything like that, we are here to help you guys. And this special week 4 growth and goals mindset. Okay, so we got these right here. It's a quick, just guide of 8 quick tips on branding. Read through these when you guys go home or something like that, because what it does is it basically gives you an oversight on how you should be branding your business. One thing I'll say before we get into Carlos and Luke, like, don't take your branding personal, because a lot of times people will design their own logo and they'll run with it because they designed it. And a lot of times it's cool, but it's not what your brand needs. So what you should do is bring it to somebody who can design, or a brand designer or anything of that nature, and say, hey, this is my concept, what do you think? And what they'll do is they'll either take it and tweak it, or they'll let you know, like, hey, that's perfect, But more times than often, when I come across this, they'll be like, hey, this is my logo. I'll be like, all right, that's cool, but that's not what you need, for the long run. When you look at things like, let's say Nike or IBM or Apple, simplicity. Right? How simple they're brandable, they're recognized all over the world, everybody knows who they are at first glance. So there's those tips on that, basically good read right there. And then another page, I think it's page 3, we have a branding mock-up. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your name, your theme and style of the logo, the colors, and the story. Your logo should tell a story. I should be able to identify what your brand is through your logo, or what it represents through your branding. And then some mock-ups. Never just draw one logo and think that's the winner. Go through 6 different logo brands, 6 different sketches, and then from there, you start pulling even more. Sometimes when I do one logo, I'll go through like 20 different mock-ups before I get to one. And then on the last page, besides your goals page, we have what to look for when hiring a designer. Because we know everybody's not gonna design their own logo. It's just the fact of it. So it's just 8 quick tips, like can they provide work samples and portfolio? That's the best thing. If they can't provide you samples or portfolio, you might wanna, hold off or take it with a grain of salt. Do they have testimonials? What do they know about me? What do they need to know about me? They need to know about your brand. So if I'm designing your logo, I'm gonna say, what's your brand? What are you doing? What's your business? How much? Of course. What's included? How many variations? How many edits? And stuff like that. What's their timeline? What's their process? Get referrals from trusted people you know. A lot of times, the main thing in getting your designer, you're gonna get them from somebody you know. Somebody who already worked with them, somebody who already dealt with them, and they'll tell you, they're A1, they're legit, rock with them. And then on the bottom, I got some videos. 7 things to look for when choosing a logo designer, how to create iconic logo. And then for designers, my favorite video right here is pricing, design work, and creativity. That's a dope video. It also applies to like your brand and stuff like that, where if you're doing freelance, anything like that, it just helps you figure out like pricing guides and stuff like that. And also number 6 is Aaron Draplin. He's my favorite logo designer. He does dope stuff. And in that video, he actually does a logo from beginning to end right with you. So you can see the whole process and learn what a designer is going to do to build your logo. And that's it for that. So right now we're about to get into it. So start getting your questions ready.
I need one of those. Yeah, I didn't grab it when I got up.
Well, I'm going to autograph this one.
Thanks, man.
So start getting your questions ready about branding, about starting your clothing brands, like what's the best step to take, what's the biggest mistake, and anything in that nature. You guys ready? Let's get into this. Carlos, my man.
Where do we start? I guess we can start with some questions, I guess, flow into it. So who has any questions first right now? Where you got your scheme or something, how you got questions?
Yeah. Starting a brand from scratch. I've done work, for a lot of different people, but it was always for someone else, and never for myself,
Right.
per se. I'd start stuff, put it down. When rebranding, what's the best approach?
Good question. Honestly, and this would always be when your common denominator answers, it's simple. Less is more. Always remember that. Like with everything, whether it be marketing, whether it be design, it totally is. A good example of that, not to stray away, but it's a billboard. So everybody knows, you have these billboards, they're really expensive. But then you wonder why would a company, let's say like Nike, just put a whole red and just put their swoosh logo in the middle, and that's it. Whether I go and I put like all this information, I'm still spending the same money, but that's more effective, because it's like, all right, who else is gonna do that? They're known for just that simplicity, so that's kind of one of those things. I think for you, it's our look of the creative, of being an artist. That's kind of like that process. Like when you start a painting, it's never gonna be right because you're your worst critic. You know what I mean? You're gonna be like, it's not there. So the best way to do that is what Marty has set in there, and every designer, even company you wanna do, is deadlines. So give yourself that deadline. Say, you know what, I need this, and don't even just make it up. There's a reason behind it. So it's like goals. So if, let's say, like she was speaking earlier, she wants to do this festival. Let's say if you were rebranding, you wanted to join that festival. That's one of your milestone goals. So okay, what are the things that I need beforehand to make sure that I'm prepared for that festival and to move forward after the fact. So it's kind of like that pressure. So be like, I only have a week to finish this logo. So at least you're more focused on that logo, and that's what you want to do. But the reality is, you have to just say, you know what, this is it. Another way to kind of get away from that is, let's say if it's a logo, have somebody else do it. Because then that way, it's like you can focus on other things and not have to worry about, put that pressure on yourself.
Right.
Like, because again, you're never gonna, this ain't right. It has to be bigger, it has to be smaller, it gotta be like this.
Right.
So, sometimes overthinking things, even like a logo, it is very important. But again, sometimes there's other things that are more important than just the logo.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I kind of answered that question, right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Yeah.
You guys, everybody?
My question is, I've been in the works of my clothing label, and I'm not gonna be doing cut and sew, so I'm gonna use blanks, and I haven't found that perfect blank. Do you think that's like an excuse, or should I be looking for that perfect blank?
It's not. It's actually a little bit of both. Crazy right now, there just so happens to be a lot of blanks out there. Like, I would say, realistically, there's probably like 7 companies that are like the go-to people, and you have to go through all those items. But it's a trial and error type of thing. But once again, it's the same thing as the logo. You have to set like these deadlines. Because if not, guess what? You're gonna sit there 2 years and keep doing the same thing, or you'll never have time, or you never, actually get to it. So it's just one of those things that put on your list that, look, we gotta get this done within 2 weeks, figure out what these blanks are. We have to order 1 of each, go to a distributor, whatever it is. Let's get that and move on. Because you can always go back. Another misconception, just because this kind of goes hand in hand with that, is when you think, okay, you need to get this perfect blank. Realistically, if you're only gonna do, let's say, 50 pieces, it's only the 50 people that are gonna know what that blank is at that moment. So you still have time to, let's say, if you find something else down the line that you like, okay, then you're gonna switch it. but the customer technically doesn't really know, and you're not doing that many, like 1,000 units that it's like, I'm sit on this inventory and I wish we would have bought this one. You know, so again, the clothing and all that stuff, it's trial and error until you find what's right for you and that you like or your customer likes.
Are there any companies you see?
I would tell you to go to one of the main companies. It's a wholesaler. It's called SS Activewear. Yeah, that's their website. I think it's ssactivewear.com, and it's called SNS actually. They have like about four or five warehouses throughout the United States. So like literally, if you set up the account, you actually need a wholesale account with them, right? So if you got your IEN number and all that stuff, you're good. If you order, let's just say at 2 o'clock on a business day, you'll get it the next day if they have it in stock in their warehouse. So it's like that, you know. Like I said, everybody from like Supreme, like all the way to the little guys, you know, use the same people. Yeah.
Any brands that you suggest?
What do you mean, like, well,
blanks?
brands, blanks, if you're talking about t-shirts,
Street
or,
style.
That all comes down to like,
it's your preference, like, and price, you know, so like, it's all, again, subjective. So what I would suggest, and, you could order a lot of that stuff, it's really, once you set up a wholesale account, like, it's literally, you pay maybe $3 for one t-shirt, $4 for another, $5 for another, $2 for another, but, you know, again, just kind of like, see what you like, just order one of each, see what it is. It's kind of sucks because you could return it, but they charge you like, I think it's like a 25%, 25% stocking fee, something like that. So basically they make it so hard for you not to return it, you know, so it's kind of like, you might as well just keep it. So again, that's a good thing also is for reference.
this kind of perfect, Luke, you have any insight on blanks?
I just think, you touched on something that I think is very important. I think as you guys are creatives, right? Because whether you're an entrepreneur or literally a creative, it's a very personal thing, and it's very sensitive for us. And for example, even myself, you have to constantly work through your own fears. And little things like a blank, the decision or the indecision of that, you hit it on the nose. You kind of, I mean, in my opinion, you kind of tapped on the issue that you may be just, you know, not just wanting to make a decision. So you kind of have to balance that out. I personally think in today's, if we were talking 10 years ago, it'd be a completely different conversation. But in today's day and age, man, buy 20 tees. If your people's like it and they're willing to buy it, you're onto something.
Yeah.
You know? So stop focusing on if it's a perfect fit, if it shrinks, just let people be like, dude, like, where'd you get that? Like, you know, if you get that, then go with your next dozen. But you're in a position now where you can crawl, and proudly crawl.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just kind of, you know, and like even within our team, we constantly have to talk about getting out of our own way. You know, and sometimes it's awkward because we have to shout out each other as a team and be like dogs, like, and you know, so I just tell you guys all that because this is normal. And with me, no one told me that it's scary. No one told me that you have doubt and fear, and those things are the things that kind of ruin your chances. You know, you have to acknowledge it, but understand it's something you have to work through. So for me, it's kind of like, it's just the blank isn't gonna kill or make your business, if that makes sense. You could grow into then making 200, 300 of your own tea, but just pick something that you like, how it fits you, because technically you're designing right now for you, and it should fit you right, because you're trying to get the attention of everybody in this room, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Chairman. Those two chairs on front. Those two chairs on front right there.
See here? Yeah. Anybody have other questions?
Other questions?
Before we get into it?
Right there?
Yeah. What's up?
Well, check it out, right? So, as far as like marketing and stuff,
Mhm.
right? I do everything myself.
Okay.
I pretty much screen print the shit myself,
Dope.
shoot it myself, I
Dope.
market it myself, everything. So I'm taking on a lot, but I feel like based off of what I'm putting into it, as far as like bread wise,
Mhm.
I'm picking and choosing based on, like you said, what I like, color schemes and
Mhm.
styles, and if I'm gonna wear it,
Yeah.
I want you to wear it.
Right.
But the thing with that is like, I kind of feel like in my own head, maybe I'm doing too much as far as like physically, so it's like overrolling into the product. So like, I'll do like 3 different designs, 4 different designs, a few different colors, but I'm doing it as like a sample.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So using the photos, I'm hoping in my own head it will carry on longer than what you would think
I got you.
based on what I have in my own inventory.
Well, you're doing it right, because that's exactly how you should be doing it. One of the best things, and I understand what you're saying, that you kind of feel like, man, am I spending too much time wasting time into doing this when I can possibly get somebody else to do it? The reality is you know why you're doing it yourself. There's two reasons. One is probably like, you don't want to wait, actually a couple of reasons. You don't want to wait, you know, the setup costs of like minimums. Yeah, and you know, I feel like a lot of us are like this. Scheme, I know you're the same way. He's the same way. It's like that instant gratification. Like, it's just a weird feeling of like, when you could create something from a drawing out of your head, put it on a computer, literally, and you're like, whoa, it's different, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's something that is a part of the true design, like, passion of doing it. Other people or companies that they're like, okay, we're gonna start a brand, I'm gonna hire this designer, it's all about the money. You have the passion for it. So when you're doing that, you don't really question, even you throwing bread into the whole situation, you're investing in yourself. You're investing into your idea. That's a way better thing, in my opinion, than let's say working for a company and following somebody else and their idea, and they're just paying you. You know, because at the end of the day, whatever that number is to pay you, that's what you're worth in your head. You're willing to do for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's not wrong, but you know, again, sometimes you have to make a decision. Am I gonna take this serious? Do I really want to do this? Am I onto something? We are at an age, like you mentioned earlier, that let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you couldn't do what you're doing right now. Because it kind of seems like, oh yeah, well he just has his like clothing brand, whatever. Now it's like, dude, you have somebody across the world sees you, oh this is fire, boom, 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 or somebody wears it and you're on to the races. You know, so it could change like that, like real quick. And you could literally, like, there's dudes right now, they're in their parents' garage, like packing stuff, making money, you know, but that's the game, like, you know, that's the possibility. You can crack within 24 hours, you know, so, you know, you're not doing anything wrong. To get to a point that I will tell you, of wasting time is when you feel like you have so many ideas and you want to, let's just say, invest more time into one thing, like other than production, then yeah, pay somebody else to just take care of it. Because then you kind of see that you are like wasting time when you should be investing your time into another part of the business to help it evolve. Because then you end up staying stagnant. You see like nothing's growing, nothing's really clicking, you know. There's so much facets to get into deeper with that, but I think that's pretty much like, yeah, so it's not crazy, don't worry about it,
Sometimes I think I'll be going
Nah, I think-
around circles of
like dude, you could be up to like 5 o'clock in the morning and you're like, wow, stop, you don't even realize it, why? Because you love it, I mean, and it's the same thing, like when I was a kid, all of a sudden, art and just drawing, it's the same thing,
See,
you
that's
get lost
the
in
thing
it.
with me, like, I'm limited to some things that I can do. So literally, my process is totally different than the normal way, like, you know what I'm
Which is
saying?
dope. Yeah. No, dude, again, it's nobody, it's like even on a computer, right? Let's just say Photoshop. I could talk to 5 different designers and we have to, let's say, try to do the same thing. Most of them, more than likely, everybody's gonna take a different approach.
Gotcha.
And that's the cool thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you work with people also, you're like, yo, how'd you do that? Well, then you see, wait, how'd you do this? It's just, wait, I did it faster. He did it in like 2 minutes. It took me 5 minutes to do the same thing. So it's just, as you go, you learn. You never stop learning, and nothing is wrong. Like any approach, it's like, you know, painting a canvas. It's, everybody will do it differently. And, you know, it's up to you. It's whatever you want. You want to begin with this stuff?
Yes.
All right, so this is an example of what I built for a champion, I think like 2 years ago. So again, what they did with me, they sent me like literally 2 sentences. And they were like, this is what the idea, you take it from there. So basically I came on when I got hired to basically come in and like jump in at the point that they were. So at that point I'm basically doing all the collaborations like Stussy, Kith, and Supreme, and Bathing Ape with Champion. So this is my idea based on what I thought in the market where it was. So before we start, we have to build a mood board. So with this, you know, like let's say anybody sees this, you kind of get that feel for what the direction that I was trying to go with the actual capsule for Champion. Pretty self-explanatory. And again, this, when you build mood boards, it could be anything. It could be like, you know, a picture of this chair with, you know, that computer and the little post-it, or these colors. It's all about the feeling. And that sounds kind of weird and everything, but that's really what it is. Then you start breaking it down deeper before design, and you start explaining the looks. So as fashion started changing with Champion, it has to, you know, in my eyes, it had to be a little more fashion, but still remain with, you know, the core of what they are as a company, which is based on like sportswear, using their fleece, French terry, stuff like that.
And this goes into your question, where trying to determine which blanks to get. You want to do something like this. Start gathering a bunch of looks that you like and fits, and then you break it down from there. Because now at least you have a goal. This is the goal I want, this is the look I want to obtain. What am I gonna need to get there? Now you can look at all their blanks and be like, all right, out of like 20 blanks, I know these 3 fit exactly what I wanna go to. And then you just narrow down 20 options into 3. Then when you get them, you put them on, now you just narrow it down even faster. So now you go from 20 to 3 to 1, and you get that champion.
And since you're talking about that, when it comes to blanks too, even in a brand, you don't have to necessarily use the same company for everything in your assortment. You know what I'm saying? Like, because again, nobody knows. It's up to what you feel. Like anything else, you go buy clothes, you're like, okay, I could buy this Nike hoodie in a large, but I'll buy this Puma one in an extra large because it runs smaller. You know what I mean? So if, in your eyes, if you have to put your whole closet together, that's how you look at it. It's, you know, so that's your collection. That's how your brand is represented when you're putting out these styles. Here we got a little deeper into the cut and sew. Obviously, we start playing with angles, just get a little more creative with the bodies and the styling. And again, even with the brand in itself, it's not too fashion, so don't really have to go out the window because we have to stay within the realm of the brand, so people don't forget that this is a true sportswear brand. This is very important when you're building a brand. A lot of people probably disregard this element of it, and it's probably one of the first things you should be attacking right after you build, let's say, your branding, because let's say trims take longer than everything else to actually get produced. So trims would fall under your labels, your hang tags, any packaging if you're gonna put your stuff in a bag, zippers, what else? And embroideries, anything that's gonna be used as detail that could be used on like 5 different items within your assortment of your collection, or ongoing. Like let's say you're known for this little circle on the bottom of the rib. That's like your thing. So that's a big important thing about branding, just as important as a logo, is finding that element, that one thing that it's like recognizable. So champion obviously is the champion C, on the sleeve cuff. Everybody knows that that's where it is. So for them, that's all you need to do. So that's like same thing like Nike, that little swoosh. They don't need to put Nike. They don't got. Everybody knows what it is. Let's move on.
And the good thing about your trims and everything like that, those details, it'll turn that $15 t-shirt to a $45 t-shirt. For something real simple, like Carlos said, like with a tag or an embroidery or something like that. Something that just brands your look. We'll turn that like a profit into an extra $30 per tee.
And like what you were saying earlier about like doing stuff yourself, it could even be something like that when you start, because that's literally what it is. So like most of the trims are usually made, when you're talking about bulk, it's all made in China because it's just cheaper and it's just more efficient. But literally, when you creating something, that's how you show the factory how to do it. Whether it be in Mexico, China, it's another person on the other side of the world that's literally doing exactly the way you think and how you want it to get done. They're just doing it faster and getting paid to do it. So again, like you're not wasting your time. Nothing that you do is crazy. Details. So that's kind of like part of what we were speaking about with the trims. So again, this just goes a little further with, let's just say your non-traditional type of approach. So even something like this with a rib, you never really see something like this. It could work. It might not work. But that's the whole part of like sampling when you get into this level. It's, you have to develop, you have to see and make sure it's right. So even as simple as something like what you were saying earlier about choosing your blanks, when you get deeper into the business, you have to like make a decision, because the reality is that you'll tie up a lot of money and time, and then obviously time is money. So it's kind of that thing like, well, look, you have to do it. If not, it doesn't work, cancel it. That's it. And then we're just out of the development and sampling cost, but it's better than producing something and then we're just sitting on inventory and it doesn't sell and I gotta put it on sale or figure out what I'm gonna do with it because it didn't work. So sometimes you kind of want to play it safe on that level. Another important part of obviously clothing in the start is artwork and graphics and patterns. This is a little combination with, let's just say, using fabric for something like this to be very simple. So again, when I say less is more, you don't really see something like this. So what they did is use the same fabric and cut a letter out and then flip the fabric in reverse and then sew it onto the sweater. Very simple, but it's even something that you can do yourself. You know, so again, it could start like that. You're like, yo, I have time, I'm gonna sit there and sew it up. That's all what fashion's about. It starts with one piece. You know what I mean? And it's art. That's really truly what it is. Then you see other people start liking it, you're like, yo, I got something. Let me keep making it. You know, and that's, I think, it just kind of brings me into this other thing. And I always just have this problem, is to keep duplicating something that's working. So, unfortunately, like, let's just say in the fashion business, and Marty can agree with me with this, when you work for companies, that's how it works, is it's like a supply chain. So when you're selling wholesale, your stuff is going into, let's just say, 50 Foot Lockers, you're in all these different stores, so the retailer wants the fresh thing, the new thing. So even though you had that, let's say that one hoodie with that graphic, yo, you sold, everybody loves it. You're like, I wanna make other colors, cool. After that, you can keep selling it, but the retailers won't wanna buy it from you no more. Why? Because it's old and stale to them. They want that revolving. But the beauty thing about the business now is you can keep doing it on your own. It's like nobody is gonna stop you from saying, keep selling that same thing or kind of exploring that same thing. You know, because again, people could just come and buy it straight from you, from your, you know, from your Instagram, from your website, anything like that. So I think that's what changed even the business model for the fashion business. It's like you see a lot of these big stores are closing because the reality is nobody really goes to Macy's anymore. You know, like I could just go on the gram and see what's hot, and boom, and you can instantly get it. You don't have to walk there to get it. Nobody has to show you how to dress or show you what is hot. Everybody knows what they want. Like that's the difference. So again, I think a lot of speculation and hesitation with just the mental game is what, let's just say, society puts out there, what they make us believe that it has to be. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be however you want, however you want.
So a good example of what Carlos said about something that works, this heart logo, this rose logo, I designed this 2015, I think, 2014, and I've been repurposing it ever since then. I had it on t-shirts, it sold out my t-shirts, put it on bags, it's working on bags. So if you got something that's winning, just keep repurposing it, keep reusing it, keep using it, keep using it, because that's constant income for that piece. And that piece will never die because more people, if 5 people like your brand today, in another year, another 5 people are gonna like your brand, in another year, it just keeps recycling. So the new customers are always gonna come into play.
And the reality is that it's like tomorrow, there's another 1,000 people that never seen or heard about you. So that's the thing that you have to constantly remind yourself with. Even though your homie can tell you, yo man, like what's up with the new stuff? You're like, dude, this costs money, dude. Like, what's up? Like, but that's what it is. So again, you could do the switcheroo. Like you said, just because you made 2, nobody knows that you made 2. You could have made 50, you could have made 1. Like, nobody knows. You know what I mean? I think another good thing, since we were talking about the art, that's part of marketing, even let's say with that rose that Marty did, that's, like you said, a signature thing. It's very difficult as, I think, creative to continue to stay with something or do something as a repetitive nature, but unfortunately, it's even like an artist. Nobody knows who you are. So if you keep switching it, or you're switching your logo, or switching your colors, you're never gonna give you or your brand a chance for people to actually get comfortable with it or get, familiar with it. A good example, a good friend of ours, Bluster, a really great, awesome artist. I think it was maybe like 2 years ago. I had this conversation with him because he was real frustrated and he was just trying to figure out like his lane. But I was like, dude, what you're doing with this particular style, I think you should keep doing this. And he was like doing this using orange and black, that's it. And I was like, dude, this works. And again, he's friends with artists like Cause, like huge guys. So I'm like, dude, you're gonna get your shot, but you, again, like anything else, you have to allow the people to get used to, it's very simple to see something. So I'm like, just keep making that, and then they're gonna like start paying attention. After that, look, do whatever you want at home, do it in your studio, whatever. You don't have to show it to people. Just keep showing them this. So then they're like, oh, he's that guy. Okay, after you got their attention, now start doing different things. Because, and look, it works. It's working for him. Yes.
Like a song created,
Yep.
and then just play it on radio until you love it, and you sit there for more, and now it's like, it's your song now.
Yep. And then also, they start adding to it, like creating the video, like you start putting money into it. Yeah, the remix, and it's weird, but that's the thing. Sometimes, even for me in my experience, there's been times that say, I'll do a collection, and it'll be like 6 t-shirts. And that one t-shirt that I added last minute because, the salespeople wanted it, whatever, it took me maybe 5 minutes to do it. It was the most sold t-shirt. And it's like, what? I'm like really that? that? And I'm like, I hate that thing, but who am I to say it was dope or not? I guess, but that's, again, sometimes that's just how funny, things are and how they work out,
It's stuff you don't think about
Nope.
too much that work.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay,
Yep.
let it go.
That, another good example is that I have this ducky t-shirt, this rubber duck.
Oh, yeah.
Yo, and people used to make fun of me for it, yo, this guy got a rubber duck, blah, blah, blah. That thing sells like crazy. Anytime I post it, it does numbers. Every single time. And people were making fun of it every single time I'm posting it. You know what I'm saying? So don't worry, if it's bringing in dollars and people recognize you and it becomes part of your brand.
I have one right now, and I hate this, I hate this shirt. It's a Nas shirt. We basically, when I had this kid who used to work for me, and he was like, hey, we should take the Supreme logo and just put Nas instead of Supreme. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, all my friends know what it is or whatever. I'm like, dude, whatever, man. We made it. Yo, I swear we probably sell, I would say maybe 20 of them average every week. And it's crazy, but it's that stupid simple. And I can't bring myself to not sell it because I'm like, yo, and so my partners, I'm like, you don't want money? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna keep it going. I'm like, whatever, it's there. But it's it never fails. But that's just, it's a conversation piece. So that's another thing you guys want to think about. It's let's say even getting a compliment from a girl, because that's the cool thing about clothing that always infatuated me. Is you could create something, give it to somebody else or sell it to somebody else, and they're gonna feel totally different, confident, that's kind of cool. And that's applying my art and to live longer. Because that was to me how I stumbled into actually. That's what I wanted to be, and then
Mine too.
I ended up doing what I do. And it's just weird, but to me, what it was, my journey in life with it, this was probably the best industry that my art could live longer. That's really how I looked at it. I think in the beginning, let's say when I started designing, I used to do flyers, a lot, because that's how I made my money. So every day average, I would probably knock out maybe 15 flyers, but that's working all day, whatever. But again, I started, it started pissing me off because I'm like, man, people who are paying me, the promoters, they come to me and I keep knocking all this stuff out. I get all these people to their parties. I'm a big reason why people come to their party because I set that mood in the visual of what these people see. So in my head, I'm like, all right, why am I wasting my time doing this? I should probably try to figure out how I can apply that same art, because I'm doing the same exact thing, into another medium, t-shirts. But what it is, it costs more money to get into that field. But again, it's a good thing because if you gotta stick it out, and even the fashion business is not that big. Everybody, for the most part, pretty much knows each other. And you're talking about globally, between here, Cali, wherever, everybody knows who. If you've been in this business that long, you know what time it is. So that's what it's all about. Who's gonna survive? And there's times I've seen dudes come and go. But I'm still here. This is what I do. This is what I love. No matter what, I'm still gonna do it.
And another good thing, what Carlos was talking about, with having that main piece that keeps on selling, it affords you the opportunity to do those other things. Because if those are gonna keep paying your bills, that's gonna help you re-up on those shirts.
Yeah.
So that's basically gonna pay for your brand while you're doing other things to bring your brand together.
That's staple too.
Exactly. So if you got that winner, keep pumping that winner out. Milk it, milk it, milk it. Because like Carlos said, every day somebody discovers your brand. You know what I'm saying?
Like the Converse.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yo.
And look, the funny thing is, because we're talking about the logo thing, even that shirt in particular, and you said it, it's a staple, it became a staple tee. I never wanted that to be a staple. You know what I'm saying? So it's literally but like he said, that affords us the opportunity to do other things, and it pays for sampling for other things and to keep it going. But hey, like I said, I'm not gonna stop because let's say I've sold maybe to this day, let's just say 500. There's still gonna be another 500 people who are coming to New York and gonna see it for the first time. And then, half of them or a third of them are gonna wanna buy it, and then, and then the other third are gonna actually buy it. But that's what it is. It's gonna be brand new to somebody tomorrow. Back to this. We start with colors. So it's a lot of this is based around unfortunately, but fortunately, it's sneaker colors. So realistically, Nike, in the fashion business, Nike and Adidas dominate, everybody knows, the market. So, what normal people, we all just systematically do, we want to match or coordinate our sneaker colors with our clothes. So why this is done, you don't have to do that, but it's the safer route. of doing it. Because then you know no matter what, at least the person that wants to hook it up is gonna buy, that's my customer too. But if you feel strongly about whatever the product is or items that you're doing and you don't care for that, you don't have to follow anybody's, you could do whatever you want. Again, it's your money, it's your time. You know, but, right, so it's the battle. So then you could do, you know, sometimes like I'll do a little bit of both. I'll do maybe 70% of the brand, I'll make the colors to be more safe, and then I'll maybe do like, you know, 2 joints, 3 joints in that crazy thing, and I'm like, look, if it doesn't sell, it's on me. Like I messed up, I made the, you know, bad call, but then you learn as you go. And you're like, you know what, let me dial it back, let me not do that. Or you see, you kind of even watch other people, other brands, it's like, ew, I probably wouldn't have done that, because I see that it's on 40% off and stuff like that. So it's like, you know. So anyway, after colorways, this is actually the capsule that was designed based on what I, you know, built out in the board. So again, the funny thing about design, realistically, it's probably like 20% of the time of the business, of the whole thing. It's really more about everything else that goes along with it. It's really thinking it through. So that's one thing I would tell people, definitely think things through before you even waste time somewhat on working on something. So that, for example, I could have sat here with this concept. I was trying to figure out how to do it, but I spent this is probably the one that took me the longest, because I have to figure out the engineering and the cut and sew and the sewing. So that's a big part when you start getting into deep stuff like that, is you actually have to know garment construction. Because you can make up your own stuff, but then sometimes when you actually do it, you realize, wait, the pockets don't hit right. Or when I put on the zipper, it has too much slack here. So you start getting into these details. But again, before I even showed something like this, I have to, especially with a company like Champion, I have to make sure that I can back it up, that if when they actually make a sample of it, that it's gonna fit for the most part right. And I did my due diligence and my homework as to how this is gonna be done. You know, because again, with a company like that, there's no time to play games. They're actually about a year ahead, a year and a half ahead of the business, which most companies are usually about 8 months nowadays. You're designing ahead for the season, so you catch deliveries, but they're just such a massive company that they have to be that far ahead. It was really scary because, you know, again, I designed this maybe like 4 years ago, but at the time it took, like I said, about a year for it to come out. So in my head, I'm not even thinking of where I was, you know, like the inspiration and my mood when I did that, comparable to the time frame, like when I, you know, after it was done and it was actually coming out. And I'm like, whoa, like, you know, I didn't know if it was gonna sell. And that's kind of nerve-wracking, but then you can't think about that because you have to be thinking about now. So that's the whole point when you get serious with clothing on that level. But I don't think to begin with, you wouldn't want to stress yourself out about that because again, you're doing it at your own pace. So, you know, until you get to that point, you're like, wait, like I think for you, you're like, you know what, I'm starting to feel certain things. Maybe it is time to like, you know, explore other avenues so you can not feel that feeling, you know, of, you know, it's a weird feeling, you know, but it's a good feeling because then you have a good problem. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, like I got all these people wanting this, how am I gonna do this? You know what I mean? Like, it's not about the money, it's about how can I deliver and how can I continue to keep doing that. What else do you wanna know? Yeah, like I said, we'll talk about this, how it started.
Jumping in a little bit on where he's speaking, I think it's important to understand who we're targeting. I mean, if we're talking about branding, right? If I'm trying to design for women, it's different, maybe different color ways, it can be different fonts. You also need to think geographically, right? If you're just trying to bubble in your neighborhood, you know where you need to promo. You know, you need to know where your brand needs to get known. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes this is everything that I speak of comes from mistakes, usually, you know what I'm saying? So we want to pop off and be Nike out the rip, and sometimes that's completely unrealistic. You have the guys have to, that's why I think it's important to write things down and study the game. And what I mean study the game, there's, you know, there's the marketing side of things, there's the production side of things, there's the design side of things, and there's the admin side of things. But when we're talking about branding, branding ultimately is your name. And then like the logo or the icon is your swag, right? Just the simplest terms. Your personality becomes a part of that. You know what I'm trying to say? So let's say the most popular guy in your neighborhood, he's a brand, technically. You know what I'm trying to say? So when you start looking at it, like every component of these things, I think it's important because it's a reflection on you. You know what I'm trying to say? So if you look at it this way and you start thinking about who I'm trying to target, you may like graffiti, random example, but if you're trying to make something for women, you have to think these things through. It can't just solely be introspective in what you guys like. So it's just studying the game, studying all these different facets of the operation, particularly marketing and sales. They go hand in hand, and that's kind of ties into the design, which is the visuals that's communicating to the people, if that makes sense.
Before we go into this, if I have any other questions?
In regards to what he was saying about, what's the name of it?
Lucho.
Yeah, in regards to what you were saying about branding, does it have to be true that you're always the brand? Because, I mean.
It doesn't have to be, you just have to find, finish, let me just.
No, because I'm thinking about like my brand is inspired by a certain group. I'm an engineer producer. I'm in my 40s already, you know what I'm saying? So, but I'm not trying to target 40-year-old men, you know what I'm saying?
So who are you trying to talk to?
So I'm trying to target, like, I'm working with this with my son, he collaborates with me with that. So his
His core people is the demographic.
is the demographic.
So I mean, like, you see, for me, it's a little second nature, right? Like, you don't need to go hang out with them, but maybe just go see where they hang out and just look. So many things could, like, you know, if we were, let's say, me, him, and Marty are designing for you guys, first thing I'm gonna do is start looking. Just looking at, like, details. You know, Jordans, okay, cool. Blue, yellow, you know, like, I'm red, like, I'm seeing things. And those things start speaking to us. And it's weird, but we, like, creatives kind of speak in visuals and words. The hard part is usually we can't articulate what we see in our brain. So when I'm telling you guys to speak to people, that's what I tell you. Compile the fonts you like. Like when you create a folder on your desktop and don't overthink it. You like the picture, put it in the folder. And then 3 months later, you're gonna have 500 images.
Yeah.
And in 3 months, you're gonna see what kind of fonts you like. And then you're gonna see the style of graphics you like and the colors you like. Now that tells you about what you want your brand to be. Then you have to study your demo, who you're targeting, and see if that kind of balances out. But it's very important to know who you're speaking to. Because when I started, like, I just wanted to be Ralph. And that was kind of that was not smart on my behalf, because I was never happy. I'm competing with Ralph. So for me, I think those little baby steps I think are important to, like, just being able to understand, like, who that is and go watch them, and that'll tell you enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then you're able to communicate, I feel.
And they're just your vehicle, so to speak. You know, your catalyst. Like, you know, and the thing is, it could switch. It could be like, you know what, now your son's older and it's not, you know what I mean? Your target, your demo is still that group. So what is that group doing now? You have to, the brand has to evolve, or is it gonna grow up? It's, you know, you have to kind of decide or make that, you know, what you want it to be. But again, it's all on you, how you want to do it. This is a good example. I just finished this for Hot 97 for Summer Jam, rebranding for this year.
Your radio station, right?
Yeah.
I think I've heard of it.
So funny thing is, it's kind of when you get with bigger companies, it usually turns out this way. So there's a lot of drafts and rounds of design in order to get it to where they want it to be as what they want, because they don't know what they want necessarily, and these are a lot of executives that are busy doing whatever they do, and all they want to see is the visual. They're like, okay, well, I don't get it. Well, that's not it. I'm like, okay, so it's like literally I'm trying to get this information and visually kick it back to them and say, is this good? You know. So the initial, when we had the conversation, you know, I'm a type of person that I do my research on the project that I'm jumping on, especially if it's something that was ongoing. So I like to see, like, okay, what was done as far back as I can go. What was done up to the point of last year, and then how can I know I'm gonna make it better? And then whoever does it next year is gonna have to top me. So that's, again, it's that competition type of thing, and that's why I enjoy doing these type of things. But then it gets to the point that I'm over it. Because I'm like, oh man, I gotta do this again. I'm already on like 2 other projects, and I just want this project to be done with already, you know, you know how that goes. So this is the first, I'm gonna show you where I started, how I broke it down, and I'm gonna show you where we ended up and which everybody could probably see now. But let's go from here. Scroll down. So this is just like building that vibe, that feeling. This is kind of like what we spoke about. So even within them, they have their core colors, but these are the colors that I predicted, that I suggested for them to use because of, let's just say, somewhat fashion, even art, because if you look at this right now, that's what's in. It's pretty much spot on. So again, it has to be dialed in. Then these are pretty much the concept, the direction of where I wanted it to go. So a lot of this stuff is being built out for billboard use, animation. So I have to make sure that creatively, I have to build all these assets. So if it gets passed on to the different creative departments for video, they know exactly and everything is placed in a way that they can actually go and do what they have to do. Scroll down. Then I have to show them how it would translate it within obviously web, social media, Instagram, on their website, so on and so forth. How we guerrilla market, them doing posters, all that nature. So literally, that's building the whole vibe for them. And sometimes people wonder, like, man, is there a company or agency? Yeah, there is, but there's usually one guy that's doing all the work. And yeah, like me and Mark. And then other people make money off of it. But again, as I've gone in my years of doing what I do, I try to figure out the best way of, obviously, how can I make the most money? I can't do everything, but I also understand that not everybody can communicate for me either. So there's been times that I work with somebody and they handle the business, but then it's just, I'm probably wasting too much time to do this or do that. But it's a kidding situation. But back to this. I also had created the merchandise based around that. This is something that I presented to them because I felt that they weren't doing it. They kind of tried to do it a couple of years ago. It didn't work out right. So I was like, look, I kind of convinced them, let me build this out. If it works, if you guys like it, we can keep doing this. I'm building a business for you. And they're like, man, we're with it after I presented it to them. But let's move on. So this is where we ended up. So this is what they ended up pushing. This is how the whole thing ended up being. And the funny thing is, this is not what I wanted to do. But again, they were like, oh, we want that graffiti look. And I'm like, oh man, street vibe. And I'm like, really? Like, it's cliche. So again, I have to figure out a cool way of keep building it up. But yeah, that's what it is. So realistically, even this, it probably took me maybe 4 days to do. All the other stuff, probably almost a month. So that's kind of how, you look at it. But that's what it is. And sometimes it could be the other way around. It could be like, I spent 3 days and boom, they're like, yeah, we love it, everything's good. Next, cut my check, done. But it doesn't always work out that way. So your pricing structure when you do branding or if you're paying somebody, you have to understand that. Let's say you're paying me to do your logo and I'm charging you, let's say, I don't know, like $800. You're like, man, $800, that's kind of crazy. But, I did and I delivered what you wanted. Within, let's say, 2 days, you're happy. Okay, cool. Now we do it again, and it probably took 5 days. I am still charging you the same thing because we had a deal. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. Sometimes it could be fast, sometimes it could be long, but it's still nonetheless, this is what it is. That's the structure of how things work. And that's how design is too, because it's based around not only your decision, but let's say other people's decision, even with a brand. Because technically it's not you deciding, it's your customer, your people telling you like, yo, that's fire. So then, yeah, keep making more. So this is
But before you get into that,
yeah.
a lot of times don't equate value to time. Because a lot of times we'll be like, all right, this person took a month to do this. It's really cool, but then you'll come across like someone like me or Carlos where it took us a day. And they'll be like, well, I'm gonna pay you $8, it only took you a day, but this person took a month. And it's like, well, it took me 20 years to get to this point to do it in a day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people don't get that, especially in design. Like that's why, for example, me personally, I don't charge by the hour. Because I'm cheating myself by doing that. This is what I charge for this. What's your budget? Who are you? What's your organization? And I can go off right there off the sense of what I'm gonna charge you. If I'm doing a label, I know I can go off the wall because they have that budget. If I'm doing a nonprofit or a smaller org, I'm gonna be like, all right, I could donate this or I could give it to you at this price, really cheap. So it's about not equate. So when you're looking for that artist, make sure you don't think, all right, they're gonna take 5 days, but then somebody else does it in a day. Just look at the quality of work and the amount of time they have put in, because that's what you're really paying for.
That's a really good point you mentioned, because technically what you're paying for is expertise. And what's crazy, I feel like, I don't know if other people agree with me, but at least for me personally, I used to feel a certain type of way because I doubted myself because of where I come from, where I grew up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, Bushwick, from the projects, but it's that kind of mental thing of like, man, like I didn't come from, let's say, going to really good school or whatever, but I kind of taught myself, and I kind of, as we went along, it was my passion. But then you start second guessing yourself. The moment you shut that off, because you're your worst enemy, that's it. You're the only one stopping yourself. And then sometimes you can deal with people and you're like, well, I don't like this. The beauty thing is, guess what? You don't have to. You can walk out that door. You know, there's so many people, even in New York, that are willing to pay you what you want. They just don't know you exist. That's the reality. And I constantly tell myself that. That's why personally, like, I don't work for a company. That's just my thing. I'm like, I can't, I've done it, I'm done. Because it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, I don't think that I was put on this earth to listen to someone else, because I know that I have ideas that work. And clearly, if you're paying me, you know, there's a reason for that. So I'm like, I'm not gonna drink the sauce, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. But going back to his point with the expertise, there's a good story that probably you guys heard of it. Let's say there's a cruise liner ship, like a Disney cruise or something, and the motor of the boat broke. So to replace the motor, they're like, man, we gotta replace this. It's gonna cost probably like, you know, $800,000. Or we can get a repairman to come over here and take a look at it. The thing is, a repairman, he charges $40,000 or something like that an hour. So like, well, let's just try that, because it's probably better to do that than to replace the motor. Old man comes, looks at the motor, takes his hammer, knocks it in 3 different places, the boat starts, everything is all good. He's like, where's my money? They're like, wait, but you did it in like 5 minutes. Why are we gonna pay you for the hour? Because you just pay me because I know what it is. I know what I'm looking at. That's the point, that's the difference. You know, so when you're even talking to somebody that you have to even explain that, I'll be honest, you're wasting your time. You should just move on.
Yep.
Because, yeah, what's up?
I just wanted to interject, for people that do design work and stuff like that, don't be afraid to say no.
Yes.
You know, it's one of the things that, you know, you take that low ball number that they give you. Sometimes it works for certain things. You might want to do a favor for someone or something like that, but don't undervalue yourself, because at the end of the day, you know, you're gonna end up suffering if you're gonna keep taking jobs like that. I've an example. I'll leave names out. I did a design for someone,